You've been told your entire life that sacrifice is the ultimate virtue, that putting others first makes you a good person, that your needs should always come second, and if you resist, you're selfish, you're cold, you're a bad human being. But here's what nobody tells you, that belief is destroying your self-worth from the inside out. Because every time you sacrifice yourself, your time, your goals, your happiness for someone else's approval, you're sending yourself a message. A message that says, I don't matter. My life isn't as important. I exist to serve, and you wonder why you feel empty. In this video, I'm going to show you Ayn Rand's radical alternative. A philosophy that says self-sacrifice isn't a virtue, it's a trap. That you can build unshakable self-worth without guilt, without apology, and without sacrificing yourself on anyone's altar. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming whole. Let's start with the lie you've been sold. Here's the problem. You've been taught that self-sacrifice is moral. That giving up what you want for what someone else wants is noble. That the measure of your goodness is how much you erase yourself for others. And this idea is everywhere. It's in your family dynamics. It's in your workplace culture. It's in every guilt trip disguised as love. Your mother says, after everything I've sacrificed for you, you can't even visit more? Your partner says, if you really loved me, you'd give up that career opportunity. Your boss says, team players don't leave at 5 p.m. when others are still working. And here's what happens. You comply. Because you've been conditioned to believe that your value as a person depends on how much you sacrifice. That self-worth comes from self-erasure. So you stay in relationships that drain you. You accept responsibilities that aren't yours. You work yourself to exhaustion for people who wouldn't do the same for you. And you call it virtue, but underneath, you're resentful, you're exhausted. You're starting to hate the very people you're sacrificing for. Because deep down, some part of you knows this isn't right. The confusion here is catastrophic. You think the problem is that you're not sacrificing enough. That you're selfish for wanting something for yourself. So you sacrifice more. And you feel worse. This is the trap, and Ayn Rand saw right through it. Ayn Rand said something that will sound shocking if you've never heard it before. Self-sacrifice is not a virtue. It's a moral crime against yourself. Let me break that down, because this is where most people misunderstand her completely. Part 1. What sacrifice actually means. Rand defines sacrifice very specifically. Sacrifice means giving up something you value for something you value less or don't value at all. It means trading what matters to you for what doesn't matter to you. It means destroying your own good for someone else's benefit. Here's her exact framework. If you love your career and you give it up to please someone who doesn't respect it, that's sacrifice. If you value your time and you spend it on people who drain you out of obligation, that's sacrifice. If you have a dream and you kill it to meet someone else's expectations, that's sacrifice. The key word here is, for nothing in return that you actually value. Part 2. What it's not now. This is critical. Rand is not saying you never help others. She's not saying you never make hard choices. She's not saying you're cruel or indifferent. Here's the difference. If you help someone you love, and seeing them happy brings you genuine value and joy, that's not sacrifice. That's self-interest. You're acting for your own emotional well-being. You value their happiness because you value them. If you choose to stay late at work on a project you care about, even though you're tired, that's not sacrifice. You're pursuing something meaningful to you. You're choosing a higher value over a lower one. But if you stay late because you're terrified of disappointing people who don't respect you anyway, that's sacrifice. You're trading your time, your energy, your self-respect for guilt avoidance. For the approval of people who will demand more tomorrow. Part 3. Why this destroys self-worth. Here's what Rand understood that most people don't. Every act of self-sacrifice is an act of self-betrayal. When you sacrifice yourself, you're declaring that you don't matter. That your life is less important than someone else's demands. That you exist to serve. And you can't build self-worth on that foundation. You can't respect yourself while simultaneously treating yourself as worthless. This is why people who sacrifice constantly feel empty. It's not because they're not sacrificing enough. It's because they're trying to build self-esteem by destroying the self. It's a contradiction. It doesn't work. Rand's alternative? Rational self-interest. The idea that your life is your primary moral responsibility. That you exist for your own sake. That pursuing your genuine values, your happiness, your goals, your flourishing is not just acceptable, it's moral. not at the expense of others, not by hurting people, but by refusing to erase yourself for their comfort. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. 3 situations where self-sacrifice masquerades as virtue and what changes when you apply Rand's principles. Application 1. Relationships, 2 minutes. Meet Sarah. She's been with her boyfriend for 3 years. She wanted to take a promotion that required relocating to another city. Her boyfriend said, "If you take that job, it proves you don't love me." People who really love each other sacrifice for the relationship. So Sarah turned it down. She stayed. She sacrificed her career for his comfort. Here's what happened. 6 months later, she resents him. She's bitter. Every conversation has an edge to it. She's keeping score of everything she does for him. The relationship isn't closer, it's toxic. Because she didn't sacrifice for love. She sacrificed for fear. Fear of being called selfish. Fear of being abandoned. Now here's the Rand lens. If Sarah genuinely wanted to stay, if being with him brought her more joy than the career move, that's not sacrifice. That's a choice based on her values. But that's not what happened. She gave up what she valued for what he demanded. She traded her future for his approval. A rational alternative? Sarah takes the job. She says, "I love you and I value this relationship. But I also value my career. If you value me, you'll find a way to make this work, or we'll discover we're not compatible." That's not cruelty, that's honesty. And if he can't respect her values, then the relationship wasn't worth sacrificing for anyway. Application 2. Family, 2 minutes. Meet David. His parents expect him to visit every weekend. They say, "Family comes first. We sacrificed everything for you growing up, and this is how you repay us?" David has his own life. He has goals, friends, hobbies he's passionate about. But every weekend, he drives 2 hours each way to sit through dinners where his parents criticize his choices and remind him of his obligations. He feels guilty when he doesn't go. He feels resentful when he does. And he can't understand why being a good son feels so terrible. Here's the Rand lens. David's parents are weaponizing the concept of sacrifice. They're saying their past sacrifices create a debt one David can never fully repay. But here's the reality. If they truly sacrificed for him growing up, if they gave up what they valued for what they didn't value, then they made a mistake. Parents shouldn't sacrifice for children. They should raise children because they value it, because it brings them joy and meaning. And David owes them nothing for their choice to have him. The rational approach? David visits when he genuinely wants to see them. When it adds value to his life, not out of guilt, not out of obligation. And when his parents guilt trip him, he says, "I love you, but I won't build our relationship on guilt. I'll visit when I can, and it will be because I want to, not because I'm paying off a debt I never agreed to." Does this hurt their feelings? Maybe, but relationships built on guilt aren't relationships, they're prisons. Application 3. Work, 2 minutes. Meet Jessica. She works in a corporate job where team player means person who never says no. Her manager regularly assigns her work that isn't in her job description. She stays late, skips lunch, takes work home on weekends. Her manager says, "I really appreciate your dedication. You're so much more committed than others on the team." Translation: you're easier to exploit than people with boundaries. Jessica tells herself she's being responsible, professional, a team player, but she's exhausted. She's not progressing in her career. And the lazy coworker who leaves at 5 p.m. just got promoted while Jessica is still doing everyone else's work. Here's the Rand lens. Jessica is sacrificing her time, energy, and career advancement for approval that means nothing. Her manager doesn't respect her, he's exploiting her. And she's enabling it by treating her own values as negotiable. The rational approach? Jessica defines clear boundaries. She says, "I'm happy to help with projects that align with my role and career goals. But I can't take on additional work outside my scope without renegotiating my compensation or responsibilities." Will her manager be annoyed? Probably. Will some coworkers call her difficult? Maybe. But here's what else happens. Jessica gets her time back. She focuses on high-value work. She stops being exploited. And 6 months later, when another company recruits her for a better position, she has the energy and self-respect to take it. The pattern across all 3. When you stop sacrificing yourself, you don't become worse. You become clearer, more honest, and more valuable to yourself, and to people who actually deserve your time. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've been conditioned to hear, "Don't sacrifice yourself," and immediately jump to objections. Let me address the two most common ones. Objection 1. But isn't that just selfish? What about people who genuinely need help? Here's what people miss. Ayn Rand wasn't against helping others. She was against the obligation to sacrifice yourself for others. There's a massive difference. If you see someone drowning and you're a strong swimmer, helping them isn't sacrifice, assuming you value human life and can help without serious risk to yourself. You're acting on your values. You want to live in a world where people help each other in genuine emergencies. That's rational self-interest, not sacrifice. But here's the key. You help because you choose to, not because you're obligated to. Not because failing to help makes you a bad person. Not because someone else's need gives them a claim on your life. Rand's point was this: when you help someone you care about, or when you help because it aligns with your values, you're not sacrificing. You're acting for yourself, for your own sense of who you want to be. That's beautiful. That's human. The problem is when culture tells you that you must sacrifice, that you owe your time, money, and energy to anyone who demands it. That refusing makes you immoral. That's when help becomes sacrifice. And that's when it becomes destructive. Real generosity comes from abundance, not obligation. You can't genuinely help others if you've destroyed yourself in the process. Objection 2. What if everyone thought this way? Wouldn't society collapse? This objection assumes that without forced sacrifice, nobody would cooperate. That people are fundamentally parasites waiting to exploit each other, and that's deeply cynical. Here's Rand's answer. A society of people pursuing rational self-interest wouldn't collapse. It would thrive. Because rational self-interest means long-term thinking. It means recognizing that other people aren't obstacles, they're traitors. You offer value, they offer value, and both of you benefit. Think about it. The best relationships in your life aren't based on sacrifice. They're based on mutual benefit. You spend time with friends because you enjoy their company. You work with colleagues because you're building something together. You love your partner because they add value to your life and you to theirs. Nobody sacrifices in a healthy relationship. Both people give because they want to, because it serves their happiness. Now imagine scaling that principle. A society where people trade value for value. Where nobody has a moral claim on your life and you have no moral claim on theirs. Where you succeed by creating value, not by guilt-tripping others into giving you theirs. That's not collapse. That's called capitalism. That's called freedom. And historically, it's produced more prosperity, innovation, and human flourishing than any sacrifice-based system ever has. The societies that collapse? They're the ones built on sacrifice, where producers are bled dry to serve non-producers. Where guilt is the currency and resentment is the result. That's what falls apart. Let me show you what changes when you stop sacrificing yourself. This is the transformation. Before, the sacrifice trap. Meet Rachel, 34 years old. Works in marketing. On paper, she's successful. But here's her reality. She works 60-hour weeks because her boss really needs her. She skips the gym because her friends guilt her if she prioritizes herself. She's in a relationship with someone who isn't ready for commitment, but keeps her around for emotional support. She sends money to family members who never pay her back but always have another crisis. Rachel calls herself a good person. She's always there for others. She never says no. She prides herself on being selfless. But here's what she won't admit. She's exhausted. She's 30 pounds overweight. She hasn't pursued her dream of starting her own agency because people need her at her current job. Her savings account is empty. She can't remember the last time she did something just because she wanted to. And the worst part? The people she sacrifices for don't even respect her. Her boss promotes people with boundaries. Her friends cancel on her constantly but expect her to drop everything for them. Her boyfriend strings her along. Her family takes and never asks how she's doing. Rachel is trapped. And she thinks the solution is to sacrifice more, to be better, to give more. She doesn't realize she's destroying herself for people who wouldn't do the same for her. The turning point then, Rachel reads Ayn Rand, and something clicks. She realizes she's been treating herself as worthless. She's been declaring through her actions that everyone else's needs matter more than hers. That her life is a resource for others to consume, and she decides to stop. After the transformation, here's what Rachel does. She quits the job. Not impulsively, strategically. She saves money first. She plans. And then she starts her own agency doing work she actually values. She tells her boyfriend, "I'm looking for a committed relationship. If that's not what you want, I need to move on." He tries to guilt her. She leaves anyway. 6 months later, she meets someone who's excited to build a life with her. She tells her family, "I love you, but I can't keep funding your emergencies. I'm building my own financial security. Here are some resources that can help you." They call her selfish. She stops taking their calls for a while. Eventually they adjust or they don't. Either way, Rachel's life improves. She tells her friends, "I'm prioritizing my health. I'll be at the gym 3 mornings a week. Let's plan dinners on other nights." Some friends respect it. Others drift away. She builds deeper relationships with people who value mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. The result: 2 years later, Rachel's agency is profitable. She's in a healthy relationship. She's fit, financially stable, and happier than she's been in a decade. Not because she became cruel, not because she stopped caring, but because she stopped treating her own life as a sacrifice to offer on someone else's altar. Here's what she says: "I thought choosing myself would make me lonely. Instead, it made me free. The people who stayed in my life after I set boundaries, those are the only ones who mattered anyway. The rest were just using me." That's the transformation. That's what happens when you reject sacrifice and choose rational self-interest. You don't become worse, you become whole. Let's bring this together. You've been taught that self-sacrifice is a virtue, that your worth comes from how much you erase yourself for others, that putting yourself first is selfish, cruel, immoral. Ayn Rand said the opposite: self-sacrifice is self-betrayal. Your life is not a resource for others to consume. You exist for your own sake. Pursuing your genuine values, your happiness, your goals, your flourishing isn't selfish, it's moral. It's the only foundation for real self-worth. This doesn't mean ignoring people you care about. It means refusing to destroy yourself for people who don't respect you. It means helping when you choose to, not when you're guilted into it. It means building relationships on mutual value, not mutual sacrifice. When you stop sacrificing yourself, you don't lose the good people in your life. You lose the users, the manipulators, the people who only valued you because you had weak boundaries. And what you gain? Self-respect, energy, clarity, the ability to pursue what actually matters to you. A life that's yours. Here's your challenge. Identify one area where you're sacrificing yourself right now. One relationship, one obligation, one pattern where you're trading what you value for what someone else demands. And ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want to? Or am I doing this out of guilt, fear, or obligation? If it's the second one, stop. Set the boundary. Choose yourself. Not because you're cruel, but because you matter. If this video challenged the way you think about self-worth, hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one sacrifice you're ready to stop making? And subscribe to keep seeing life through the Rand lens, where we question everything you've been taught and find the rational path forward. Next video, we're breaking down another lie you've been sold. You won't want to miss it. Until then, choose yourself, unapologetically.